Here we have a 2018 Chevrolet Equinox LT doing the front and rear brakes and the rotors. This is the one that has the electronic rear parking brake, which the 2017s do not. Lugs are weird here because they should be 19 millimeters, but they have an aluminum cap that goes over them that tends to fall off, revealing an 18 millimeter lug under it. So I had to use 19 and 18 millimeter sockets to get the lugs off. Here, the front caliper retainer pins are 14 millimeter. You can use a flat blade screwdriver to pop the old brake pads off. The brake pads come with dimples on them to designate the outside pad and the inside pad. The one with the two, like I'm showing here, that are vertical, go to the outside of the vehicle. Here I'm going to use the C-clamp to press the piston back into the caliper housing. I put the old brake pad in to give it a surface to press onto. Keep pressing until the piston is recessed almost all the way down into the caliper housing until the old pad basically makes contact with the housing. Off camera, I had already opened the brake fluid reservoir cap to allow for air and any fluid to come out. As I press the piston back in, it will force the fluid up a little bit in the reservoir and it may even spill out. Just check it at the end, refill it as necessary. Use a bungee cord or something similar to suspend the caliper in the air and relieve any stress on the brake line. The front caliper carrier bolt is a 21 millimeter. What you don't see is me struggle with trying to break it free, as I don't have the car high enough to get my breaker bar in there, and the breaker bar had too much play in the head, so I ended up using a 21 millimeter box wrench and another box wrench clicked onto the bottom so I can provide the leverage I needed to break them free. After breaking them free, I just finished backing them out with my electric ratchet. This car has 130,000 miles, so the front rotor did not have a set screw. It does have the hole for it. If yours does have it, it should be a T30. Depending on what part of the country you live in, your caliper carrier and your caliper could have tons of rust. Use a wire bristle brush and get as much rust off as you can. It will make it much smoother to slide the caliper over the new brake pads and also clipping in the brake pad retainer clips to the old carrier. Now put on the brake pad retainer clips, just make sure they're centered. They only go on one way, so you'll figure it out. Now start to attach the caliper carrier back after you put the brake pad retainer clips on. You can just hold it with one hand in the air, line it up more or less, and then start hand threading the bolts back in to keep it in place. Don't tighten them completely yet. The brake pad that has the two dimples that are furthest apart goes to the inside of the vehicle. And as mentioned earlier, the brake pad with the two dimples that look vertical goes to the outside. Now remove your bungee cord or whatever you used. If you did everything correctly and the piston is recessed correctly and everything was sanded out nicely, then the caliper will go right over the brake pads with very little room. It will be tight enough that friction alone is enough to hold it in place while you locate the bolts. On a 2018, the front brake caliper carrier bolt should be torqued to 80 foot-pounds or 115 Newton meters, and the caliper guide pins that we reinstalled earlier should be torqued to 20 to 24 foot-pounds or 27 to 32 Newton meters. The lugs are between 100 and 140 foot-pounds. Here you see the guide pins in the back. They are actually 13 millimeter, 1 millimeter smaller than the front. You will probably need to hold the guide pin on the inside with pliers to keep it from spinning. Now with the bolts off, just shimmy off the caliper. On the rear, at least in this 2018, I found that I did not have to hang the caliper by anything. It has a nice surface where it sits on comfortably with no tension to the hose. Here I'll show you how to take the rear electronic parking brake off without a scan tool. You just take off those T30s that are in the back of it that connected to the caliper. I'll show you in a close-up soon. The caliper carrier in the back was an 18 millimeter compared to the 21 for the front, and it was a lot easier to get off. I did not need as much torque. You will see the bottom carrier bolt though is placed very awkwardly. You'll have to get a long socket that fits through this cutout here, and it just reaches the bolt, allowing you enough space, it sticks out just enough where you can get your ratchet on the socket. Once I broke it free, I was able to spin it out with my fingers awkwardly. These bolts were a lot rustier compared to the front, so I used my wire bristle brush to clean them as best as I can before putting them back in. My rear caliper did have a T30 screw. T30 if you need it. Now clean this surface off with a wire bristle brush as best as you can as well. And just like the front, brush off all the rust you can with the wire bristle brush on the caliper carrier. And also just like the front, the brake pad retainer clip only fits one way and also should be centered. And as I put the caliper carrier back in, I have to get that bottom bolt started again with my fingers awkwardly, get a few threads in, and then I can finish it off with a ratchet after. Obviously put the rotor on first, but I had already edited this and the clips were out of order. I didn't want to start over. Here you're going to see the torque screws that are T30 that are holding in the electronic parking brake. Here you're going to see me bend the top steel brake line back just a little bit to have access to the screw. Nothing's going to happen and it's not going to harm anything. It just needs just a little clearance so you can get your socket in there. Now we need to separate the electronic parking brake from the caliper. This is going to be very easy, and there's a little slot between the plastic and the steel that I put a screwdriver in and pried it open. It came off with very little effort, and there are no gaskets or shields or anything like that to worry about. In the center of the electronic parking brake, there is an opening for a T45 socket. Here you will see that it turns very easily and I didn't even need a ratchet. I can turn the socket with my fingers. You turn clockwise and it will recede the parking brake all the way in, and then you can compress the piston. Same concept here, just use an old pad and compress the piston till it's almost flush. When you put the rear pads in, the one pad that has the wear clip goes on the inside. Now you have to line up the splines with the electronic parking brake and the caliper head. It's very easy. I just kind of turned it as I did it and they all fell in place. It's not very hard at all. You give it a little turn back and forth and it'll fall into place. You'll see what I mean. The rear setup is not heavy at all, so you can hold the two pieces with your one hand easily as you hand start the screws that hold the electronic parking brake to the caliper. The electronic parking brake creates a little bulk in the back, so it's a little tricky to get it all back in place so you can line it up to connect the bolt to the caliper guide pins. But as you saw, I just did it pretty easily. You just got to get it in the angle that I just showed you. The torque specs for the rear are similar. The caliper carrier is 92 to 111 foot-pounds, and the guide pins are rated at 20 to 30 foot-pounds.